Talk story number 3. This was a special one. This particular character was not the third Transformer I got, but it was the third Transformer I got from the 1984 series of characters that were released. You know, a lot of the times when I'd go shopping, it would be with my mom, whether it was at the supermarket, the mall. A lot of those times, wherever she decided to shop at, there was a toy department. I'd ask my mom, I said, hey, is it okay if I check out the toy aisle? And she'd kind of look at me skeptically, but she knew I'd be safe. She would be able to do her errands, grab whatever she needed, and I'd be out of her hair. I'd be safe in the toy aisle. All she had to do is swing around after a half hour, an hour or so, and come and grab me because I'd be so preoccupied at looking at all those wonderful things that the shops had to offer. I'd always ask to see if it was possible to grab one of the more inexpensive Transformers from the shelves. Most times it was a no, but sometimes I'd get a lucky yes and steal away with a smaller figure. My mom always knew what I was into, so when it came to purchasing things for birthdays and Christmas, she already had an idea of what it was that I wanted. So the reason why this guy is so special to me is because I acquired this one from my father. My dad was never one for the shopping experience. Every time we would go to the mall as a family, he'd always disappear, and we'd find him later on talking to somebody, always somebody new. Thought the guy would run for mayor. He knew so many people, but he never really stuck around in those shops, in those small stores, and he definitely didn't come to the toy aisle. So it colored me surprised when my dad asked me to come along with him to go shopping. We went to the town center and nestled all the way to the back of this long building with all these shops in it. There was a Woolworth, an old dark store that made you feel a little itchy when you'd walk in there. There was a very small toy aisle inside that store right next to the art supplies. I asked my dad if it was okay if I went over to the toy aisle. And he said, yeah, let me just go grab some stuff. You can go look around. And it was so cool because kids never really went to a Woolworth to grab a toy. They were more like novelty toys, you know, like cap guns, marbles, jacks, things like that. It just so happened that I had gone into the toy aisle and they had a few characters. I already knew that my dad wasn't going to get me anything, especially the ones they had available. They were a little bit more pricey. When we're getting ready to go, he comes walking down the aisle to come and collect me. He sees me looking at this box. And he looks at me, and he looks back at the box, and he says, do you like that? And it was surprising. I knew that when my dad asked if I liked it, it meant there was a possibility to ask him if I could have it. But before I could even say anything, he says, all right, bring it, let's go. He tells me to pop it up onto the cash register, and up until that point, I thought it was a joke. My dad rarely went shopping, let alone bought me anything from a toy store. So when this happened, it was such a momentous occasion. This character never really stood out to me in the show as one of the ones that I really liked. But from that day, when my dad got Sunstreaker from that dusty old Woolworth, he became one of my most valuable and prized belongings. My dad drove back home. I was excited to get into the house so I can open it. And when I did, what I found inside was an amazing piece of engineering. This figure had it all. Beautiful yellow Lamborghini Countach. Replaceable fists that you could put missiles or pile drivers into the socket so that you could launch them at the enemy. I thought he was like one of the coolest characters after that. And if it wasn't for my dad inviting me to come along with him to go and buy whatever he needed at that store, I would have never acquired that figure. This is one of my fondest memories, and it was all thanks to my father, a man who barely went shopping and never stepped into a toy aisle. And what was even more fantastic was it wasn't my birthday, it wasn't Christmas, it wasn't a special occasion. I didn't do anything fantastic to earn it. My dad just made a decision, and he decided to grab me this random thing, and he has no idea how much that purchase had affected me that day. So this talk story is dedicated to my dad. I hope you folks enjoyed this talk story and the artwork that was produced during this video. I had a lot of fun with this character. Because of his interesting look, he's always one of my favorite characters to draw. So that's it. Here's to the third talk story. We'll see you next time.